And God did. Miraculously. God has to work in you before He can work through you. He wants to work through you to be a blessing to others. And when He does, oh my lands, your life will become so much fun, so exciting as your life touches others. But He has to work in you through first. Take Joseph, sold by his brothers. Can you imagine how he felt? Sold by his brothers. Taken down to Egypt. Sold as a slave. Tried to be faithful and tried to do a good job. And his master's wife, Potiphar's wife, tempts him day after day. And finally, when she realizes he's not going to succumb, then she lies about him and says, he tried to rape me. Potiphar had him thrown in prison. 13 years, Joseph, since the time he was sold by his brothers until the day he was made prime minister. Can you imagine it? You see, what was God doing? God was using trials in Joseph's life to make Joseph the man that he needed to be, so that God could work through Joseph. And I'm sure that there were days in prison when Joseph said, God, what are you doing? Where are you at? I've tried to be faithful. Where are you at, God? And you've been there and I've been there. Where are you at, God? What's going on? I think about one more. You know that strategic time in Israel's history when they were slaves in Egypt, remember, as we open the book of Exodus? And the Egyptians were fearful of the Israelites because they were becoming so many of them, and so they were taking the little boy babies and tossing them in the Nile River and destroying them at the king's edict. And you remember one little baby boy was miraculously saved. And he was raised in the king's palace. And the hand of God was on him. And when Moses was 40 years old, trained to be a soldier, a scholar, a statesman, a leader, he had a heart and a compassion for his people, because he had learned at the knee of his mother, when she got to be his nurse as a little guy, that we are God's people. And he went out one day and he saw an Egyptian beating on one of his Hebrew brethren, and he intervened and killed the Egyptian. And Moses, who was so self-confident and so sure that God was going to use him in such a great way, got it way ahead of God. And he had to flee the backside of the desert. He was 40 years old. For the next 40 years, Moses, trained to be a soldier, scholar, statesman, leader, spent 40 years taking care of his father-in-law's sheep. Until at age 80, there was the burning bush experience, and God called him and said, I want you to go to Pharaoh. Tell him, let my people go. And what was Moses' attitude? He said, Lord, who am I? Who am I to go to Pharaoh? God said, I got you right where I want you. That's the attitude I'm looking for. But you see, God had to work in Moses before he could work through Moses. And so it's a very key thing here. Consider your trials a blessing, knowing that God is testing your faith, and then let him work through you. One more thing, ask. Here we see a believing heart. Ask. What should we ask for? The Bible says we should ask for wisdom. Why wisdom, Pastor Carl? So that we don't waste the opportunity that God gives us to mature. Man, I don't want to waste a trial or a tribulation I have to go through, so I have to go through another one to try to learn that lesson that God's teaching me, you know. And so ask for wisdom as you go through difficulty. God, what are you showing me? God, what are you teaching me? What are you trying to do in my life, dear God? Now let me close by saying there are 4 fruits from trials. Just to encourage you, there are 4 fruits. Number 1, enjoyment. Enjoyment. Pastor Carl, I thought you said we don't really enjoy trials. No, we really don't enjoy trials. We endure them. But but we endure them with the joy, and we realize they are a prelude to blessing. So therefore, we have joy, just like Jesus. For the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. Okay? There's great joy. Pastor Carl, I'm going through a difficult time right now. I'm going through a setback. I want you to know you can have joy, even in the midst of it, because God is working. God is working. Enjoyment. Number 2, endurance. Endurance. To bear up. To become stronger. We have 2 guys in our church right now who are just a month away. In fact, a month away. This weekend, 1 month from today, from this weekend, they are 1 month from yesterday, they are running their first marathon. One is Derek Seneca, and the other is Pastor Shane Sunderman. And I just wanted to announce that because I don't want either one of them to back out, see. And I've been talking with both of them, especially Pastor Shane, because, you know, he's got to do what I say. But I'll ask him every week, what'd you do last Saturday on your long run? You know, how was it? How far did you go? And that kind of thing. And he has done what he has never done before. He's gone past 20, you know. And he's got to do that because in a few weeks, he's going to go past 20 and the pain will set in. And so he's got to go through the so-called trial now so that on that day, he gets that finish line feeling that I was talking about last week. And that's what God is doing to you. That's what he's doing to you. He's building endurance. And sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it's painful. Pastor Carl, I'm going through a difficult relationship right now, and things don't look so good, but God is working in you to make you stronger, to develop a Christ-like spirit in you. Enjoyment, endurance. Number 3, enlargement. Here's the third fruit from trials, enlargement. We see it in verse 4, that you may be perfect. And the word perfect means mature. Again, do you know the Bible says Jesus was made perfect? I remember reading that many years ago when I was a young fella, and I was just stumped. How could that be? I thought he was already perfect. Jesus was perfect. He was sinless. He was the only sinless one. How could Jesus be made perfect? It means Jesus was made mature. He grew is what it means. To become a mature man. An oak tree is the perfection of an acorn. And that's what the Bible is saying here. In fact, I have a little poem about an oak tree that I wanted to share with you. When you're feeling a little low, when you're feeling a little blue, take a look at a mighty oak and see what a nut can do. Doesn't that encourage you? You see, God knows that we grow when we work against pressure. Let us press on to maturity. God knows that we need to work against pressure to develop strength. One time there was a man in the woods and he saw a butterfly in a cocoon and it was trying to work its way out of the cocoon. And it was just struggling and struggling. And so the man said, I need to help him. And he took out his pocket knife and cut the cocoon so the butterfly could come out. And the butterfly came out of the cocoon, but it fell on the ground, flopped around. Sadly, it could not fly.